Hey everyone, and welcome back. So we're going to be talking about survivorship in this video, and we're going to be talking about with survivorship, we're going to be looking at different groups of individuals. So a cohort is a group of individuals that are born at the same time, and a cohort is going to be different from other cohorts. So like people, and so I'm using humans now. Humans in the 50s had a very different experience and environment than people in the 90s did, or the 80s. Many of you may have been born in the 90s or the 2000s. And so your experience is going to differ from those who were born in the 70s. In the 90s and 2000s, we had internet. Pretty much nowadays, every home has multiple computers. Most individuals have their own personal computer in their phone. In the 70s, that was not a thing. Computers were not something that most people had. In fact, computers were abstract to most people. They didn't understand. And the internet was not even a thought in most people's minds. And so within a cohort, we have our own survivorship curves. And that's the plot of the number of individuals surviving over time. Okay? So there are three types of survivorship curves. So type 1 survivorship occurs when most individuals within a cohort survive until old age. And so this would be like what we see in humans. Most humans survive until 70s, 80s, 90s. Not all, but most. Type 2 survivorship occurs where you have the population decreasing consistently over time. And so we see this in a lot of our songbirds. Whereas type 3 survivorship, most individuals die very early, but those that do survive last to an old age. And so we see this in oysters. And so these are three different survivorship curves that you see. And so let's look at the human pattern. So human population growth occurs, there's approximately 220,000 people per day added to the world's population. So this would be number of births. And so this brings us to a number of 82 million people are added to the world's population per year. The doubling time is the length of time it takes a population to double in size. And so for humans, this doubling time is approximately 52 years. And we may not level off, hit that carrying capacity until we reach between 10 and 14 billion individuals. So there is a video here that you can click on. I'm not going to click on it, but it's interesting. Talks about reasons why population growth occurs the way it does, which I'll talk about some of those reasons in just a few minutes anyways. So when we look at human population, we can split the different countries into lesser developed countries, so countries that don't have all of the benefits yet that more developed countries have. Places like certain places in Asia, Africa, South America are going to be less developed than places like Germany, Italy, France, the UK, the US, okay? And what we also notice is that in less developed countries, population growth increases much more rapidly than in those more developed countries. So why might that be? We have a higher standard of living in more developed countries. And we also have a reduction in the death rate. So the likelihood of our children dying when we give birth is much less in a more developed country than it is in a less developed country. Therefore, we don't need to produce as many offspring with the hope that one or two will survive till adulthood. there are other reasons as well. So why, first, let's just talk about that. Why would we have why would we more likely have less people dying than in less developed countries? Well, in more developed countries, we have medicine. So there is medicine in all countries, but in some countries, it's very hard to get that medicine. In more developed countries like the US, you're able to get access to healthcare much easier than you do in some of these other countries. We also have more food, and we have different types of food. So in some countries, there's not a lot of protein. You might have a lot of carbohydrates, so you get a lot of energy, but if you don't have the proteins or the vitamins, then you're not going to be able to produce all the different amino acids. You're not going to be able to produce the proper materials for sight and for a good immune system. And so that's going to affect your ability to survive. And then, of course, we have, instead of an agricultural society, we have more of an urban society. So we produce things and we run things. We do produce things still, but we also run things more than in the past. So between the 1850s and the 1950s, we have had a lot of increases in health benefits and nutrient benefits, and that's going to influence our ability to survive. Other things that might influence us is education. We know the cost of producing offspring. So if you know how expensive children are, you may be less likely to produce as many children. One of my professors, when I was in college, said that was called the opportunity cost of children. And he said, let's talk about that. And he asked what that was, and I didn't know. And he said, it's that children cost us our opportunities. And that was a joke. But in reality, when you have children, you do have to spend a lot of money, and then you can't do as much for yourself, for your life, because now you have this other life that you're taking care of. In countries like Germany, Hungary, Sweden, the growth rate has decreased so much that they are decreasing in population size. The US has a very low growth rate, but part of that low growth rate is also because we have many people that immigrate every year to the US. So our population growth is not just because of humans being born, but because humans coming to our country and living in the US. Less developed countries then have a much more rapidly expanding population. And they have a lower standard of living in those countries. So in less developed countries such as Africa or Asia or areas of South America, they are producing many more children very rapidly for certain reasons. So for one, if you are concerned that your children will survive, you're going to produce more to make sure that at least a few of them will survive to adulthood. Another thing, they are more agriculturally inclined. So they have to produce everything. A lot of these families in these countries are producing their own food. And so if you have to produce food on a farm for yourself, then you're going to have to be able to run that farm effectively. And the only way you can do that is if you have enough hands. And so extra children means you have extra hands to run that farm. So these are reasons why you might produce more children. But at the same time, if you have more children, then you're more likely going to be in debt because, again, children cost a lot of money. So how can we help lesser developed countries? So there's certain things that we can do. One big one is delay the onset of childbearing. A lot of times in these countries, people start having sex and producing offspring at a much younger age. We might want to establish family planning programs. So if we can help them to become educated so they understand the cost of producing that many children, and we show them ways that they can stop from getting pregnant, like using condoms for protection, then we can delay the onset of childbearing and decrease the number of offspring being produced. We could also use certain programs to help them desire a smaller family. Maybe we show them, hey, if you have less children, you're going to have more money for each of the children that you do have. And we show them this so that they can then maybe send their children to college and their children can have a better life than the parents did, which is what all parents want for their children. And again, we have another video here that you can watch. I'm not going to play it. I think I've said it before, but you can't play a video within a video. It just doesn't work very well. And so here is a diagram of age structure. So these are individuals in this light blue-green area. These are pre-reproductive age individuals. And you can see that in less developed countries, these are the most numerous of individuals right here. In the developed world, they're not the most numerous. Then reproductive age. That's a nice large number here, right? Again, reproductive age, much smaller in developed countries. And we have few individuals up here that are post-reproductive age. Actually, in the US or in developed countries, the majority of individuals are within that post-reproductive age. And so what's going to start happening is we're not going to have enough people in these two categories to take care of the people in these categories. So think about nursing homes that we have. A lot of people have to go to nursing homes because the parents don't have children to take care of them. Or I guess it wouldn't be parents then, would it? It'd be the elderly don't have children to take care of them or grandchildren to take care of them in developed countries. Whereas in lesser developed countries, we have young and the middle age. I'm calling these middle age, even though they're not middle age. They're just in the middle of the chart, okay? That can take care of their elderly family. There's enough of them, but over here there's really not. And so that is going to influence the way elderly are cared for and everything as well. So I'm going to stop here and we'll get into interactions between populations in our next video. Bye.